We have Dr. Dave Pearce, who is on our board and has been for some time. And we have one of our newest board members, Fernanda Leal-Pardinas, who joined the board in January of this year. So she's coming up on her 1-year anniversary. Most of you know Ineka. She's been around for a long time, but she's only joined our staff this year as well. So we're grateful to have her. We're going to start with Ineka giving you a little bit of a presentation, and then you can ask questions in the chat during the presentation if you choose to, but know that we're going to try to hold the question answers until the end of the presentation. So with that, Ineka, if you'd like to take the wheel. You're muted.
That's a great start. Can you see my presentation now?
We can.
Okay. All right. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for making time to be here around the globe. I know it's very late for some of you in Europe and early for us here in Australia, but not too early. We wanted to give you a little bit of a background, I guess, on where we're at, where we sit today, what has happened and what's brought us to this point today that we're sitting here talking about the REGENXBIO update. So as most of you would know by now, on November 8, REGENXBIO had a press release announcing a strategic pipeline prioritization and corporate restructuring. They were prioritizing programs now for age-related macular degeneration, or wet AMD is this program, and diabetic retinopathy, their Duchenne muscular dystrophy program, and the MPS2, which is another lysosomal storage disorder, more known by the familiar name of Hunter syndrome. So these are now, according to this strategic reprioritization, these are the programs that REGENXBIO have said they'll be focusing on. In terms of pursuing the other programs in their pipeline, they're now looking at strategic alternatives, including potential partnering for other clinical stage programs, including the MPS1 program or Hurler syndrome, and both of their CLN2 disease programs. So these are two separate programs, one for CNS and one for ocular. We found out on November 8 from the patient advocate leads and the CLN2 team at REGENXBIO that this had just been announced. So we quickly got together with our colleagues around the world from other patient advocate groups to put together a joint statement, as we have done with other major breaking clinical program news over the last year or two. We were able to coincidentally publish this together on our social media platforms, all within a few hours of each other. And we'd said that as a collaborative patient advocacy group, of course, we know we're absolutely heartbroken over this decision. And we know that you guys as a Batten community have faced this devastating news like this numerous times in the past 2 years, especially. And that's owing largely because of the change in the global economic market. And it seems to have hit the biotech sector particularly hard. So, of course, we're not unfamiliar with this kind of news, unfortunately, in the last couple of years. As a patient advocate collaborative, we wanted to assure you that we are committed to working with REGENXBIO and their potential partners to ensure these programs advance. In conjunction with that global statement, we also shared a letter from REGENXBIO that they gave us permission to share. So they had penned this letter on November 8. And we shared it on November 10 when we got our global statement together. And REGENXBIO voiced that they are disappointed to share that they're no longer moving forward with the development of these two programs. And it was a very difficult decision for them. But due to the challenging economic market, this was really the bottom line for REGENXBIO is the reason why they have decided to not continue with these programs. Ken Mills, the president and CEO, had said that we believe that gene therapy has a potential to impact the course of Batten disease, and we're committed to pursuing alternative paths forward for these Batten programs, including finding a potential partner. So, and this is the message that we've had repeatedly. So since November 8, Amy, myself, and I, and other patient advocate groups around the world have met with the REGENXBIO team at all levels of management, senior management, and the message is consistent that they are proactive and really committed to this, pursuing the program for it to continue moving forward. The letter continued that patients who have been dosed, and this is the practical information that perhaps some of you may not know about, is that those that have been dosed in the trials of 381 is a clinical trial, REGENX 181 is the investigator-initiated study. They will continue to be followed, those patients, but new patients will not be enrolled from this date. Families of patients currently enrolled in these trials will be contacted and receive further information through their study site and can reach out to their study team directly for more information. And that remains the case. If you need further information that to reach out directly, we can help you connect with those sites if need be. And again, please know that we are committed to doing everything we can for the CLN2 Batten community to identify a partner to advance these investigational therapies to patients. And they have provided this email for patients and the community to reach out to at REGENXBIO. So please do feel free to connect with them directly if you wish. When we look back, so why is the REGENXBIO, I'll just go back a slide, why is this news hitting us particularly hard as a community? Like I said, this isn't new to us as a Batten community, but this has hit particularly hard and we've felt it right across the globe. And there's been a lot of tears from our team internally, and indeed, you know, with the REGENXBIO team too. We do know this has genuinely been, you know, really, really hard news for them to have to share with us. Why is it hitting so hard is because we know in recent months there has been some really promising and encouraging progress with both of these programs. You may recall, if you'd seen our July family conference presentation, either live or the recording, that the REGENX 181, so this is the ocular program, sorry, 381 ocular program was announced in earlier this year that the phase 1/2 was open and actively recruiting in the Great Ormond Street Hospital, Gosh Hospital in London, and that was recruiting up to 16 patients. We know that investigator-led study, which was a clinical investigator or chief investigator approached REGENX to treat a child who presented at the clinic and was an appropriate candidate to receive this therapy. The REGENX 181 investigator-led study was opened and the patient was dosed in late 2022. And in July, they'd announced that preliminary data would be presented later on in this year. In August 2nd, the ocular program update, we found out that the first patient had indeed been dosed at Gosh in London, and the initial data from this trial is expected to be shared in 2024. So we know at this point that a small number of children have been treated in this 381 ocular study. And as far as we know from our discussions with REGENX and from looking at the preliminary program at the World Symposium, that we have no reason to believe that this data won't be shared early next year. This is the first week of February for the World Symposium. So we really have encouraged and implored REGENX to share this data because we feel it's important that the world, the scientific, clinical and patient community knows about this data. What has held true through all the conversations so far with REGENX is that it's not about the data. From what we're seeing, it's safe and well tolerated, and the efficacy so far, a very, very small number of patients, of course, but it looks encouraging. So this isn't a question about the data or the safety, the efficacy or the safety of the product. It's not about the science. Again, in August 31, the central nervous system, the CNS program, the initial interim data from the 6-month post-treatment was presented at the Society of Inborn Errors of Metabolism in Jerusalem. This 6-month data treated one child in Brazil, showed that it was well tolerated with no serious adverse events. There were sustained levels of the key enzyme, TPP1. There was an increased time between the requirement for the infusions for the Brineura an 86% reduction in the frequency of seizures at 6 months, which led to a withdrawal of 2 anti-epileptic meds for this particular patient. And there were improvements observed in fine motor and expressive language skills. In October, REGENX also put all this data together across the 2 programs in a letter to the CLN2 community. So this was promising and encouraging so far, which is why I think that news has hit particularly hard. So what now? Where do we go to from this November 8 announcement? We met with Ken Mills, the CEO. Amy and myself met on November 21, and we spent a long time, well over an hour, discussing strategic plans on how they would be progressing with 181 and 381, both of these programs. From our discussions, we're encouraged to learn that they are exploring proactively a range of options. And it's not just in terms of looking for other partner companies, but whether or not this looks like, individual studies in the US, outside the US. I mean, they're really considering things right across the board. And we have, so we will, whatever we can do to assist, we want to partner with them, and we will keep reaching out to them proactively to make sure, the fire remains lit under them until such time that a solution has been found. And they've agreed, they want to keep in communication with us as well. And indeed they have. We were quite sure that there would be questions around the other CLN2 programs at the moment. This is something that's we have on our website, our clinical trial update website. We talk about it at most research update webinars. We present it at the family conference every year, what's happening with the other CLN2 gene therapy programs. So Lexio is one that you may be familiar with. This at our family conference in July, we talked about this AAV. It's an RH10 AAV vector. There was a phase 1/2 completed some years ago. The results were published in 2020. And we know that although this therapy was safe and well tolerated, it didn't show the efficacy that would have been hoped for to progress this program forward. So they went back to the preclinical stage in discussions with the FDA to look at how they might change the route of administration or the dosage or other ways that they might proceed with this. At the moment, we know that the CLN2 program is actually no longer on the Lexio website. This was something that was brought to our attention by a family in recent weeks. The foundation has been liaising with Lexio, and we've encouraged them to also, this transparency is critical for our community, and we're encouraging them to put together a direct communication to the community to explain where that program's at and what their next steps are with this. Likewise, Orpheon is another one that we frequently update you on. We know that this is a ocular only, this particular program based on the approved Luxturna, which is an AAV2 gene therapy for another inherited retinal condition. There was discussion back in 2022. They were planning to submit an IND. There was no update in July, and at this point we are unaware of any further updates as well. So the landscape is not ideal at this point in time, but again, we're really encouraged by the fact that this isn't about the science, that there is something out there that does show promise, and something, it's a beacon of light for our families. And therefore, I think it just gives us even stronger conviction and impetus to really collaborate with REGENX to make sure that this does not, fall in between the cracks and disappear. And we will continue advocating on your behalf. What can you do? The REGENXBIO advocacy team, like I said, is available via this email, and we encourage you to stay connected with the foundation as well. As you know, we're in regular contact with them now, and your local advocacy group, if you're dialing in from many countries, I encourage you to stay connected with your own advocacy groups as well as us. And I also, particularly for the US families, this is really critical. We haven't had a formal family register before. We started it this year. The response has been really great. It could be better. So if you are a current or bereaved family, because all the information is essential for us and really, really important, particularly current families, it helps us inform those industry partners that are interested in running trials or moving their programs forward. We want to know how many CLN2 families are there in the US or North America. Where are these children? How old are they? Who are they being treated by? These are the sorts of things that we really need to connect with you to find out and share that information. Completely anonymized, by the way. We don't share your personal information onwards. It's just a broad picture, a number of what our Batten community and what our Batten population looks like in the country. So you can go to this via our main page at BDSRA Foundation. Under the research tab, you can click on the family register. It looks like this. It's an online form. We can provide you with a paper copy if you prefer, but it takes just a few minutes. It's not a very long, arduous form, and we encourage you to fill that out at your earliest convenience. Likewise, we have an interactive clinical studies chart that is updated regularly, and you can find that under the research tab as well. You can toggle this according to subtype or what stage of investigation, what phase of the study each particular program is at, and this remains updated. We also wanted to share with you that we will be covering a more broader NCL research, clinical and scientific overview from the 2023 highlights and key takeouts from the year. Look out for those registration links for this coming in the next day or two through our newsletter and our social media posts. So we, look forward to any of your questions now, and I'll stop sharing my screen and hand over to the floor. Okay. I see you've been following the chat, Amy, so I might hand over to you, or...
Amy, you're on mute.
Thank you. So we have one question. Okay. One of the mothers said, "Hi, I'm the mother of a 381 dose on August 2nd, and I'm still yet to receive any communications from anyone or be spoken to about what happens next." I would say that we're not in a position to answer that for you, Jessica, but it's very good information for us to know. We will be glad to pass that along to the proper people, and I would expect that you would hear from your physician, but if you have not, please let us know that also, and we will carry your message forward.
Amy, just to complement your answer, there is a very strong red tape delimiting companies reaching out directly to families or patients. So we cannot do that. It has to be always through the clinical trials site or the investigator team. So precisely, yes, reach out to your physician, and the physician should be the one reaching out to their company for communications. Sometimes they won't share communication right away because it's material information, it's confidential, but at least to keep you updated as soon as they have that information.
Thank you, Fern.
Yeah.
And likewise, I know the BDFA is on this call today as well, and Joanna Nightingale, they'd be happy to communicate with you and reach out on your behalf as well if needed, assuming you're based in the UK.
We received another question from Estella, and we may need a little more clarification, Estella. The question is, why did you partner up with Lexio? We haven't heard from them in a long time. So I'm not sure what the partner up part means, but we do try to keep in regular contact with all of our industry partners. Up until the last year, we had regular monthly meetings with most all of them. Lexio went quiet about a year ago, and we know that they have continued work and had reached out to us recently, and I'll let Ineka respond with what they told us.
So yeah, like Amy said, we proactively reach out to all these companies that we know. Indeed, the Lexio related product program, there was only a few months ago that there was a publication that came out with regards to that. So we knew that was a signal that there was still some activity going on in terms of that program. I believe that was sort of the IND enabling studies that had occurred earlier, but these results were then published. So we take it in our own stride to go and communicate with all of those companies. Like I said, we know that CLN2 program has now just recently been taken down from their program, from their pipeline page, which we had not been proactively advised by the company. We found that out through other channels, as I said, through a family that reached out to us. So we have approached them and asking them to provide something of a formal communication to the community, because it's not something we can't speculate as to why that's gone and why it's been removed. So we're asking them to communicate directly, either with us or the community directly. So we will have an update on that shortly as well.
We have another question from Jason. It says, I'm concerned that the medical experts that worked on the REGENXBIO studies trials will have moved on to new projects and work with the announced pause and refocus. Presuming funding is available to be secured and research testing can once again begin, do you anticipate an additional delay as new medical personnel have to be brought up to speed to learn where the previous team was and carry on from there? And I would say yes. I know that REGENX is hopeful that a team would be able to be assembled from the original group if someone were to pick it up, but I know that we know that other teams may need to find work sooner than that, and so it's a good question, but it's likely that they would have moved on.
Amy, I can bring a little bit more color from the industry side. The moment that a program is paused, the personnel is asked to work in other projects. And what is told is that if they restart the program, then they would go back to that program or they would find new people. The good thing is that the time it takes to get up to speed is not that long. It's more about finding the personnel if the people have left or they have left the company. But most of the times they are able to find the expertise within the company or outside, and it's really fast the time you get almost no training. It's mostly the reestablishment of the contracts and the infrastructure required for a clinical trial that is made out of the delay, that makes the delay. So I would say most of the people that have worked in Batten tend to continue working on it or easily go back to working back on it. Because the majority of them are neurologists or pediatric neurologists. They have the expertise, the know-how. It's mostly the operations part of it that takes time.
Let me just add to that. The bad news is the REGENXBIO team is essentially dissolved and moved on, as Fernanda said. The good news is we still have a dedicated group of a lot of scientists at the academic institutions, which will be the sites for these trials. So, so just saying it in another way there, the neurologists are always, the pediatric neurologists are always going to be there, the neurosurgeons who do the injections, those people are still there. That's a skill set that won't go away. It's just the actual, capabilities of the one specific trial that REGENXBIO actually had.
Yeah, and I think a good plug in there, Dave, is all of the work that you have done and the rest of the BDSRA has done in establishing the centers of excellence, precisely to help with these types of situations, so that when we get the study started, they are well prepared and aware. So.
And I think it's a good point just to sort of mention, that if you've been following the BDSRA's social media, we're moving forwards with these centers of excellence. So if and when the reframing of the industry happens and someone has a gene therapeutic for any of the Batten disease, we'll be even better set than we have been in the past. That's the, one of the questions further down is what can we do? Is we can just be prepared and make sure that we're the most attractive group of diseases for industry to come back to when the resources are actually allowing that.
Thank you both. We have a couple questions about why the register is just limited for USA families. I will tell you that we know that some of the other countries collect that information of their own right. And so without stepping on anyone's toes, we move forward with our own. It is really taken off at this point, and it is time that we need to open it up for other families to register. I will tell you that our board president, Darlene Royalty, loves history and is passionate about family genealogy. And so she has really taken on this project and has committed to provide historical information to complement a lot of what we had, but maybe only had pieces of. So this has become a very robust register. And I think it is time for us to now talk to our international partners about opening this up to the international community. I know that some families from other countries have registered. And so we will be promoting that worldwide, and we will be able to share that information with our international partners with permission of everyone who uses it. So stay tuned and watch for that to come as well.
Yeah, exactly. And we didn't want to go over the heads of other organizations that we know are collecting their own databases of their own communities. So, but now if there's an appetite, and there certainly is, then we will liaise with those patient advocate groups to then be it'll be like a hub and spoke model, I guess. We'll be a central database and encourage those individual patient groups to reach out to their communities and feed your traffic into our database here. So thank you for that. We'll definitely follow up and be in touch again soon.
The next question is, did REGENXBIO reveal what companies they've reached out to? I would say privately, Ken Mills talked openly with Ineka and I, but we are not permitted to share that information. And so what we can tell you is that they have actively pursued other partners, and they continue to do that. And, I understand why you want to know, but I think, as Ken said it eloquently, the more no's we have, the more we can move on quicker to the yeses. So they're not done. And I would say that.
And I was encouraged to see, the list that we had. Amy and I had a short list of companies that we thought would be good candidates based on their experience, expertise across gene therapies and or NCL. They had already approached those companies proactively before that. So it shows that they are, definitely moving forward with those conversations. It's not just empty lip service that they're pursuing other avenues. They legitimately are. So that's good. We did leave that call encouraged to that degree.
Yes. And to add to that, I would say that I've been with BDSRA nearly 3 years now. I have never spoken to the president and CEO of any of our industry partners. And Ken reached out to us to have that meeting. We didn't ask him for it. So they have been very good and open partners with us. And I want you to know that they care very much about this community. We got a question about the Bernura eye trial, injection trial, about what's happening with that. Ineka, can you speak to any updates on that for us?
Yes, so there is a BioMarin sponsored trial that's happening by invitation only at the Nationwide Children's. We do know that that's now fully enrolled. There were only 5 patients that were invited for that. As far as I'm aware, there's no opportunity for expansion at this time. It's a very sort of small strategic project that BioMarin are undertaking. There is also an investigator-initiated project, so this is not a company-sponsored study going on in the GOSH in London as well, and that's something that you can reach out directly to the site there or through the BDFA to see where that's at and whether they're taking other children in.
Thank you. I'm typing an answer to Michelle, so I just want you to know that we need a little more information. This is from, I think it's Rainey. Thank you for setting up the webinar. Are there only questions about gene therapy, or may I ask a question on enzyme eye treatment? I think, yeah, the answer is yes. So if you want to type it in the chat, that would be great.
Happy to answer anything on Brineura. Yeah.
And then Amanda asked a question, part of my best attempt at articulating this question. How long do we as a community have before the expensive groundwork laid by REGENX more or less expires when approaching regulatory bodies such as the FDA, before it will need to be redone by an interested biotech and company? Actually, this is a question we've been discussing a couple times the week, and that is a concern. But we've been told by more than one person that the shelf life is safe right now, and they're not concerned about it. So if Ineka or Fern or Dave wants to expand on that, you can.
Yeah, I mean, the science doesn't change, and they do have a product. So, the shelf life should, I mean, to be perfectly honest, it's never been tested. So what the FDA will probably require will just be some sort of, testing on the product in 12 months or 18 months or whatever, with respect to what's there. My best guess is the science still stands. Whoever takes this on will probably just manufacture a new virus, a new vector, and go with that, because it's probably easier to actually do that, quite frankly, than to do a bunch of experiments to test if what's sitting on the shelf now is there. So what's lost is mainly time. In terms of what REGENXBIO pass on to another group or another company, based on what we understand, they'll be fully transparent, and that would basically just mean a re-review by the FDA of data they've already seen, and really a relatively rapid approval.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I echo what you say, Dave. I think you bring up a really good point, which is the science is there, and a very hard step, which is a proof of concept. The fact that it has been dosed in humans is already there, which is a great advantage. So that also makes this program a little bit a better candidate for companies that might be interested in taking it in, or academic groups that are interested in taking it in. So even if the drug expires, which may happen in a few years, Amy says that we still have time for that. But even if it expires, the know-how is there, the science is there, and it's backing it up.
Thank you. This is a good question. Will the results of the REGENX 181 study be published? And if so, when can we expect them to be released?
Ineka or me? Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that we know the 6-month data is not published, but it's publicly available in terms of the top line. It's a 2-year study from what I understand, and I can't comment. This is an investigator study, so it's really down to the individuals as to whether or not they publish it or not. That's really, I don't know, Dave, unless you can add anything further to that.
Yeah, the thing about this is such a small number of patients they've done, so published, and I like the way you said it, Ineka, made public. I think, it won't go through a peer review process for publication because there's just not enough there, for the academic sort of peer review thing, but they probably will, as have other companies and as have REGENXBIO all through this, made data public, on their websites or through other channels. And they, as far as we know, they have had acceptance to present this at the World Lysosomal Storage Disorder meeting in San Diego in February of next year. So I believe they'll probably, again, make it public, but it won't be published, as it were, by our true academic definitions. So you will have access to it.
Okay. Also from Rainey, she says, or Rennie, do you have any insights on studies on Brineura in the eye? We are in
Germany.
Dent, is it Germany? Okay.
Yeah, it's in the
Yeah,
Hamburg
so-
program. Yeah,
So in Angela Schultz's clinic there at
exactly.
UK. Well, again, we mentioned before, there are 2 studies ongoing with the Brineura injections into the eye. One is the sponsored study and nationwide in Ohio, and the other is an investigator-initiated study in the Gosh Hospital. We haven't seen any data from the BioMarin sponsored study yet. That's still sort of, I think, only a year in. They've only just recruited, I think, their final patient in the last few months. So that data collection is ongoing and hasn't been shared yet. In terms of the Gosh study, I know some preliminary work was presented at the Chicago meeting in November last year, and I think there has been some since. Was it at NCL in Hamburg? I can't remember if that was the Gosh data, but we can get back to you in terms of that. Again, it's only early studies, by the way. It's early days. It's similar. I think both of those 2 eye studies commenced at similar times. So again, they're both still assessing data, assessing children. What we do have is only very preliminary at the moment. Even the early data we saw in November last year was sort of in a few older children, and it was more around the safety at that point rather than the efficacy. Fern, I don't know, or if Dave, either of you can add anything more.
No.
I think you captured it all there, Ineka.
Okay, so this is a question that has multiple questions, and I'm just going to start after reading all this. I'm going to just start off by saying this for all of you. First of all, we don't have a pay to play for trials, right? That's unethical. And so families raising money to try to get their children in a trial is never encouraged by us. And I will tell you that we've learned, it costs anywhere from $2 to $3 million per patient to run a trial. So this is a very, very expensive endeavor for every company who pursues it in Batten disease and all other diseases. And they need that money in order to take it to the end of the trial to prove whether it's successful or not successful. So this is a multifaceted problem, and it's across all the industry partners, not just 1 or 2. It's not just a REGENX problem. It's not just a, Alexio problem or any of the other companies that we've experienced. And so trials are very expensive, and they are ongoing, and that is purposeful because you have to follow the patients to see how well they do and respond. So, we're not talking about raising enough money to just get the drug to trial. The trial itself is millions of dollars, and it lasts a long time. So it's a complicated process. And I just want you to know that up front, that as much money as we can raise doesn't mean that that's enough to carry it through to the end. And so I'll let the experts explain to you more efficiently, but I just want you to know that it's not just about raising enough money. Even if you could raise enough money to just pay for the drug or pay for the science, we still have to pay for the patient care and follow them for years afterwards. So so this question is, did REGENXBIO self-fund? And if yes, was that the original what was the original budget allocated for the study? I'm not sure that we have that detailed of information. But yes, they would have funded their own trial, or they would have had investors and partners who were doing that with them. We don't know what the total cost of the trial was per year. That's not also publicly shared with us. Is self-funding an option available for patients participating in the trial? That answer is no. Again, there's no pay to play. What is the estimated amount required to continue the trial? REGENX did not give us that answer. I'm sure they had a projection for themselves. And what we see is that the projection's not being met. And so when they have projection and they don't have enough funding, they have to decide what to do next before it gets too far in, right? What's the estimated amount required to continue with the trial? We don't know. Prior to the decision to terminate the trial, what was the projected number of treated children? We know that it was publicly shared, and Ineka shared it a little bit earlier in the presentation, that they had enough projected for 16 children, and that was for the eye, right, Ineka? So 381. And I would invite our colleagues who are much more experienced in this area than I am to speak on this.
Can I just add a couple of
Go
things?
ahead, Dave.
Context, and I paged through some of the questions, and I'm very wary of the time right now, so a couple of the questions overlap into this. You know, the point being is companies, they raise millions and millions of dollars because they're for profit, you know, to develop their product. They assemble an expert team. And we talked a little bit about that expertise there. That expertise goes to the medical centers that we have been supporting. So when maybe I misspoke, when someone's asking what does it mean for an academic program to take this on, it still needs a company that's raised millions of dollars to have developed the product to go to either the University of Rochester, to Nationwide Children's, or the Kennedy Krieger. So, you know, again, what can we do to make ourselves attractive? Just to have those centers ready as soon as a company takes on this product from REGENXBIO or develops a new gene therapeutic. You know, and we're doing everything there, having Ineka in place. You know, so we're a legitimate organization with a scientific and medical advisor with respect to having your advocacy and your participation, having the registry with respect to that. So we have everything except for the dollars. And to Amy's point, it's pay. You can't do the pay to play because you need that infrastructure, you know, for a clinical trial to actually be performed by a group of experts from the company in partnership with the academic medical center with respect to that. And I think someone asked about orphan drug status. That's again up to the company with respect to that, and that's a mechanism to expedite them getting approval with respect to these things. So right now we're actually doing everything that we can to make ourselves attractive. And I congratulate Amy and Ineka for all of the conversations and difficult conversations and putting these companies on the spot right now.
And just to complement the orphan drug designation, so the REGENXBIO already had orphan drug designation, and it doesn't really help much more whereas it regulatory. It makes it faster. It has some tax exemptions. It does have some clinical costs that are cut, but it doesn't help much more than that. It's not going to make it happen faster or in any way easier. You are right, Dave, that it's not just about money. It's about infrastructure. It's about having the group of expertise. It's about having the right institutions. There are so many different departments that work in a clinical study. And I think Amy brought it up. It's about $2 to $3 million per patient, but it also depends the phase of the study. The first phases usually are expensive because there's a lot of other studies that you have to do, tests that you have to do to check that the drug is working or that it's not having any side effects that are not that are detrimental to the patient. And then the phase 3 studies or later stage studies are expensive because you usually have a larger number of patients. So it's not only, I think that the point here is not about the money. It's about the whole system and the whole infrastructure, which is very difficult to navigate and establish, especially as an independent group.
And any company that's prepared to take this on must understand that this is the long game. You know, you're not just looking at a 2-year study and to have capital to fund X number of patients for 2 or 3 years. This is about, well, will you have money to go through the regulatory process? If it does look promising, do you have the expertise, capacity, appetite, finances to run it through the commercialization process? Post-market studies. I mean, you have to play the long game. And I wouldn't trust a company that didn't go through all of that due diligence first and say, have we got the capital and the appetite and the endurance to take on a study that is going to take this much time and this much money? So, you know, there's a lot of factors. And unfortunately, you know, as everybody on this panel has said, it isn't just about the money, unfortunately. Yeah, it's really tricky. How are we going for time? 7 more minutes.
Yes, and we do have a good scientific question that I think it would be good to answer. Can you please confirm if whether participating in one AAV vector trial would automatically exclude individuals from participating in other AAV vector trials?
Yeah, that's a really good question. As a rule of thumb, yes. Unfortunately, because the moment that you are treated with an AAV vector, you create antibodies to that vector. Now, if it's a different vector, or if there is a natural barrier, say like you were treated in the eye and the next study is, say, in the spinal cord, in which you have barriers, natural barriers in the eye and the spinal cord, there may be some exceptions. So it really depends trial to trial. But as a rule of thumb, investigational studies that are first in human, you usually don't want to risk it because you don't want your studies to be biased, your responses or results to be biased by another study. But of course, it depends.
Thank you.
Hey, Fern, good answer on that one. Sorry, Amy, I'm going to jump to one other question because it's relevant to what we discussed before when we missed it. Someone's asking about compassionate use. Fern, do you want to take that one? You're probably the best one to answer that one.
Yeah, so compassionate use, it really depends from company to company. I'm not sure if REGENXBIO has a program of compassionate use, but usually compassionate use is done once you establish a study that has helped and you're in the process of being in a regulatory status. Say you just filed an NDA with the FDA, and you're in the process of waiting to get that FDA response, then you can open a compassionate use or an open label extension study while you're waiting for the results of the FDA, which usually take months. So I think at this moment, REGENXBIO is too early to even provide that, if as a company, they provide compassionate use.
Then, yeah, the follow-up question, likely, could we still sponsor something like that? Again, you still need all of that infrastructure in place, you know, to follow the use of something like compassionate use as well.
Here's a good question, Dave, that you could follow up with. Becca said, Dave said we need to work hard at being the most attractive disease group to work with. How do we do this?
Yeah, and I think again, this is about the centers of excellence. I mean, you know, we've expedited doing that. As soon as we knew we had a scientific medical advisor, I was very impatient in making sure we got all the docs together. Ineka's smiling, right? Because it was a big thing. We've got everybody together and we're planning to move forwards with it. So just the fact that as these biotech companies and even these venture capitalists, when they start perusing what diseases are we going to choose, the infrastructure is in place. Across the United States, we had 11 groups participate in this. 11 groups want to be part of a Batten Disease Center of Excellence program. We're not there yet. We hopefully will be soon. But that just means that people will recognize you can run trials more effectively. One of the rate limiting steps is across the whole size of the United States, you know, the geography. But if we can actually have multiple centers to do this, multiple experts, it just makes it more attractive with respect to that. So that's what we can actually do, and we can tell that story.
Yeah, and I think.
Go ahead, Ineka.
Just, I mean, another additional point to that is the patient register. Like we said before, knowing who those patients are, where they are, who their physicians are, how old those children are. It's really, and as Dave, you've said this over and over again too, this biotech slump is cyclical. We've seen it in the past, we'll see it again. But at the moment, what we can do in this particular period of time is get ourselves, it's called clinical trial readiness in the industry terms, being clinical trial ready when that does, kick back up again, having those centers of excellence locked and loaded. We're arming ourselves with the registry. When they approach us, we can give them that data. And I mean, look, I know from experience already in this role, the last few years, that when you've got that table of your patients and their age and, how far they are from a clinical trial site, who their physicians are, and you can, and a CRO, a clinical research organization, contract research organization approaches you and says, tell us about this site or tell us about this population. There's a table, here are the numbers. That turnaround time is so much quicker, and it really does lubricate and expedite the process. So we can work together as a community, and I feel like we've got that cohesion. So as a community, as a disease, as a condition, let's be attractive for more R&D. Let's be attractive for more research and development and biotech investment. And that's what we can do in the meantime.
Thank you for teeing up what I was just going to say, Ineka. I'm seeing lots of comments about working together. And I just want you to know that we are aware that there are plenty of countries who don't have a BDSRA because they're too small of a population. And as much as turnover as we've had in industry, as much as turnover we've had in our patient advocacy groups, I'm here to stay. And I am committed to this community. And we have, since I've started, we have made attempts to work together collaboratively. And even though there has been changeover in presidents and some of our international partners, they're all still very willing to carry that torch forward and to work together to serve our communities. If you don't have a patient advocacy group in your country, we're here for you. We're not going anywhere. It would be unfair for us to call ourselves an international organization when there are other organizations in the world. However, we will serve internationally for anyone who doesn't have that opportunity. And I just want you to know that we're committed to that process for you. And we do want to be trial ready. And that's why we're moving forward and pushing hard to get the centers of excellence in the works and to get, bring Ineka on board to start funding research again in 2024. We have great plans and we want you to come along with us. And we're almost out of time. Well, we're out of time. So if there are any other final thoughts, Dave, Fern?
I think if anything, we should collate these questions. I know because we didn't quite get through all of them, and maybe just put some written answers up somewhere. So we'll notify folks on how we're doing that. Correction, Ineka's going to do that.
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Yes, as
In
I
fact,
said at the top.
We might even be able to address some in the research updates as well on the upcoming webinar on December 13.
Yes.
Yeah.
And as I said at the top, this will be recorded so that others can watch it and available on our YouTube channel. So if you know other parents who wanted to participate but couldn't, they'll be able to watch it at a later date.
Yeah. And my last comment would be, even though this is disappointing news, as you said, there's so many people committed to this, so many academic groups, so many advocacy groups. We're here to stay, and we're trying to organize ourselves in the best way possible for that. When that starts and that sparkle starts, when people are starting getting more interested, more money and more structure to do these studies, we are prepared.
So there is a lot to be hopeful for. That's exactly what I was going to say too, Fern, is unfortunately the premise for this meeting today was off the back of some very disappointing news, but we do want to leave you, and we were talking about it as a group, the four of us, before this call started, that there is a lot to be hopeful for, and this is realistic hope. We're not just, it's not air castles, it's castles in the air. It's very much realistic and tangible hope. We know we've had 7 gene therapies approved now across different conditions, 2 this year. It is moving forward. The technology is getting better, the manufacturing's getting better, our knowledge and understanding is improving. It's really, remain hopeful. I know it's not fast enough for our kids. We're also conscious that time is of the essence for families and time is neurons, but we're standing with you, and we understand all those moving parts more than I think. So thanks for supporting us to support you.
Any final thoughts, Dave?
No, I think that's it. So we'll make sure we answer all the questions, or make sure that weren't answered as we page back through.
Yes. Yep. And my email address is Amy, AMY, at BDSRAfoundation.org. Feel free to drop me a note if you have questions that didn't make it into this chat, and we will get back to you. Ineka's is it's research at Research BDSRA Australia, which is really long, .org. Yeah. So we use one email address for her to keep it simple. It's been a pleasure to have all of you with us this evening. I'm very grateful that you took the time out to chat with us. And again, we are here to support you, and we do have great hope for things to come. So stay tuned for December 13th for our next chat, where it'll be the year in review. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you to Dave, to Fern, and to Ineka for joining me. Good night.